buried bunker and the buried secrets of the soldiers who fought and died here.
We opened like a time chest.
The Eastern Front of World War II, where Hitler and Stalin's armies fought to the death.
More than 80 years have passed since the end of World War II, but memories of those dreadful times can still be seen all across the world. From forgotten assets to deadly weapons, these are some incredible World War II discoveries found in recent years. Number 1. Forgotten Tale. A group of Russian World War II enthusiasts was combing battlefields with metal detectors, hoping to uncover relics of the past. But what they found was far more haunting than they'd expected. The remains of a German soldier lost to time. It started with a helmet, a clue to something buried deeper. As they dug, they uncovered another helmet, ammunition, an anti-tank mine, and finally, the skull of a soldier with a broken jaw.
Like and subscribe right now, and you'll have amazing luck for the rest of the week.
For these experienced searchers, finding a mine or a soldier's remains wasn't entirely shocking, but it does make you wonder, who was this soldier, what was his story, and how many like him still rest, forgotten, across battlefields worldwide? Number 2. Mighty Musashi. When people talk about iconic Japanese battleships, Yamato usually steals the spotlight. But let's not forget its sister ship, Musashi, which was just as impressive. They are still considered two of the largest battleships ever built. On October 24, 1994, during the Battle of Leyte Gulf, Musashi was overwhelmed by air attacks from Allied forces and sank to its final resting place in the ocean. For decades, the ship's remains were lost until 2015, when Paul Allen, Microsoft co-founder and son of a World War II veteran, along with his team of researchers, finally located. They used high-tech tools to find the battleship at about 3,280 feet deep in Philippine waters. This discovery wasn't a quick one. Allen had been searching for over 8 years. When they found it,
this is the bow stem. You can see it is crushed at the bottom due to the implosion of the watertight compartments.
the Musashi, once a 73,000-ton Titan with a crew of over 2,000, was now a haven for ocean. Tragically, nearly half the crew perished when it sank. For Allen, a billionaire passionate about Lobiduitus relics, the discovery wasn't just about history, but closure. He hoped it would help us better understand the battle and bring some peace to the families of those who were lost. Number 3. T-34. The T-34 tank was a fearsome weapon of the Soviet Red Army during World War II, but one sank into the Don River during the summer of 1942, likely while crossing a pontoon bridge. 70 years later, the tank was pulled from the riverbed. Researchers also found remnants of pontoon, transport vehicles, and small vessels, all submerged since the war. Despite spending decades underwater, the tank was in remarkably good shape. Restoration experts believe it could even be restored to running condition. It's a testament to human engineering that machines like the T-34 were built to endure the chaos of war and the test of time. Number 4. Close call. Armed with metal detectors, 4 historians set out to explore fields in Latvia, one of the last Nazi strongholds during World War II. After the Red Army surrounded the Nazis, many soldiers fled or surrendered, leaving behind well-preserved defensive bunkers. Over time, illegal diggers stripped most of these sites bare, but in 2019, a local farmer tipped off the group about a potential untouched bunker. They got to work and soon uncovered the bunker's surface. They dug the whole thing out, really slow and careful, and found some cool stuff, like beds that had fallen down, a desk, and even an axe. It was like stepping into a time capsule, a dream come true for World War II relic hunters. But things took a scary turn when they found a hand grenade with its fuse and spoon looking suspiciously off. Decades old or not, that thing could still explode, and everyone knew it could be fatal. The team didn't take any chances handling it carefully. It was a stark reminder that history sometimes comes with real risks. Number 5. Czechoslovak bunkers. Inspired by France's Maginot Line, Czechoslovakia built its bunkers along what is now the Czech Republic's border. These fortifications were meant to protect the country from German attack. They were determined not to end up like Austria. But these bunkers never got their moment, courtesy of the Munich Agreement, which led to Germans taking control of Czechoslovakia without a fight. Ironically, the Germans then studied the bunkers to understand better the French defenses they would invade later. After World War II, the Soviets took over the region and repurposed the bunkers during the Cold War as a defense system against NATO and Germany. But once communism collapsed, the bunkers were abandoned and forgotten until the 2000s, when interest in them reignited. Many bunkers were sold, and some were turned into museums by private investors.
Just came out the bunker. That was quite a fascinating look inside the world of Cold War communist-run bunker that's still fit for purpose these days.
The Czech government, however, saw them as a financial burden with no real purpose. overlooking their historical significance. It's a shame to see such a vital piece of history sidelined. Number 6. Sunken Stuka. In September 2014, local fishermen near the Croatian island of Gairsoppa noticed something unusual on the seabed. Intrigued, researchers from the Department of Underwater Archaeology of the Croatian Restoration Society checked it out and hit the jackpot. They discovered the remarkably well-preserved remains of a German Ju-87 Stuka bomber. Considering that only 2 of these planes, out of almost 6,000 originally built, still exist in museums, finding another one after more than 70 years is a huge deal. This particular plane is believed to have been part of the Italian Air Force and was shot down in April 1941 by the Royal Yugoslav Army. It rests on its landing gear with its engine ripped apart, likely from the crash impact and lying nearby. The wreck wasn't even very deep, but it took all these years to discover it, reminding us how much history is waiting to be discovered nearby. Number 7. Mega Submarine. In 2013, researchers at the Hawaii Undersea Research Laboratory discovered a World War II-era giant resting 2,300 feet underwater off the coast of Oahu. This wasn't just any submarine, it was the I-400, nearly 400-foot-long mega submarine built by Imperial Japan. Interestingly, this mega sub didn't sink in battle. After being captured by the US along with other Japanese subs, it was sent to Hawaii for examination. However, the things between the US and the Soviets were heating up after the end of World War II, so the US Navy sank it to prevent Japan's advanced sub-tech from going into the hands of Soviets. Even after the Cold War ended, the exact location of the I-400 remained a mystery. When researchers discovered it in 2013, they were taken aback because all this time, they had thought it was further in the sea. This mega sub, which now rests calmly on the seafloor, was once capable of traveling 1.5 times around the world without refueling. Number 8. Ghost Fleet. During World War II, Chuuk Lagoon was a critical Japanese naval base, but in February 1944, the US launched Operation Hailstone, a surprise air and naval attack on the lagoon. Over 60 warships and hundreds of aircraft were destroyed, sinking to the lagoon's floor and creating an underwater graveyard of the Japanese fleet, now known as the Ghost Fleet. Thanks to advanced technology and divers worldwide, Ghost Fleet now offers new insights into the devastating attack. Many of the wrecks remain hauntingly intact, with coral and marine life thriving on. The sight is surreal, like a scary movie poster painted with bright elementary school colors. It's strange how forces of destruction can eventually become part of nature's tapestry, turning weapons of war into peaceful underwater sanctuary. Number 9. Swamp Ghost. During World War II, more than 80,000 aircraft were lost, and Papua New Guinea holds its share of crash sites. Among them is the B-17E Flying Fortress, a plane lost for over 6 decades.
One of the best preserved relics of World War II history, the Swamp Ghost has been slowly decaying in the Agiambo swamp of Papua New Guinea for 64 years.
This aircraft is believed to have been part of a mission attacking Japanese-occupied New Britain on February 23, 1942. On its way back, it was either attacked or ran out of fuel. Thinking they'd found a flat field to land on, the crew touched down only to find themselves submerged in 4 feet of swamp. The entire crew survived and made it back to an Australian base within weeks, but their plane disappeared into the swamp, forgotten until it was spotted by an Australian Army helicopter decades later. They nicknamed it the Swamp Ghost. In 2006, the plane was salvaged and shipped to the US, where it now rests at the Pearl Harbor Aviation Museum. After decades of submersion, this flying fortress finally found a new home, still carrying the eerie mystique that earned it its name. Number 10. Bismarck Rest Place. Bismarck was the largest battleship built by Nazis, which had a small but action-packed career. The ship was commissioned for its first mission in 1941, which also turned out to be its last. The British had already uncovered the surprise attack the Nazis had planned with the Bismarck. During the clash, Bismarck managed to explode a British battleship but took serious hits. Instead of continuing its mission, the crew decided to head for occupied France to make repairs. However, its fuel tanks were damaged, and the Royal Navy relentlessly pursued them over the next few days. The Nazis knew they had lost this battle, so instead of handing over the ship, they decided to sink it. For decades, nobody knew where it was. But then, in 1989, a team led by Dr. Robert Ballard, the guy who found the Titanic, located it resting more than 15,000 feet deep in the Atlantic Ocean. Even after getting wounded by the Royal Navy, flipping flipping upside down, the ship is still in pretty good shape compared to other old wrecks. Number 11. Tank in basement. Imagine visiting a quiet German neighborhood and hearing rumors that some old guy has a World War II tank in his basement. It does sound unrealistic, but in 2015, German authorities discovered that an 84-year-old man had done exactly that. This guy had turned his basement into a private museum packed with World War II memorabilia, including a fully restored Panther tank. Yes, an actual tank. Authorities seized it, along with other weapons, arguing that they weren't properly demilitarized and violated bans on war weapons. The man was fined a hefty sum and forced to sell or donate his collection. The tank had been chilling in his basement for over 40 years, but someone spilled the beans and snitched on it, leading to the discovery. The government didn't just confiscate the tank, they had to demolish part of the basement to get it out. To add insult to injury, they also damaged the Panther's pristine suspension while loading it onto a trailer. Rough day for a WLVC enthusiast, right? Number 12. Nazi Eagle. Back in 2006, a group of divers were checking out the wreck of the Graf Spee off the coast of Uruguay. You know, that Nazi battleship that went down in that first big naval battle of World War II in 1939. Well, they found something pretty big down there, and I mean literally massive. A 750-pound bronze eagle with a wingspan of over 9 feet and standing more than 6.5 feet tall. Oh, and it was clutching a giant swastika by its talon. The Graf Spee was a terror on the sea, sinking 8 ships in just 2 months after the start of the war. But instead of letting it fall into enemy hands, the Nazis sank it themselves. The eagle was found off the coast of Uruguay, and governments have been arguing over what to do with it for years. The latest plan?
Last year, Uruguay's Supreme Court ruled the eagle was the property of the state.
Melt it down and turn it into a peace dove. Sure, that's a nice sentiment, but let's be real. Melting it doesn't erase history. It's an artifact, and history's better understood when preserved in a museum, right? Number 13. German tractor. The Nazi land army had a workhorse, half-track vehicle, also known as Wehrmacht tractor. These hybrids combine the off-road mobility of tracks with the road speed of wheels, making them perfect for rough terrains. They were sturdy, offered protection from small arms fire, and were mostly used to transport squads into battle. Some even carried anti-tank guns or flamethrowers. One of these half-tracks was recently pulled out of the Volkhov River in Russia. It's believed to have fallen through the ice during the Red Army's counterattack in the brutal winter of 1941-42. Half-tracks like this are already displayed in military museums across Europe and the US, but this one's special. Found in remarkable condition, experts think it might even be restored. A rare find with a story frozen in time. Number 14. Nazi artifacts. After World War II, many high-ranking Nazis fled to Argentina, hiding under new identity. The country's shady history with war criminals came into focus again on June 2017 when Argentine police raided a collector's home in Buenos Aires. At first, nothing seemed unusual until they found a secret passage behind a bookshelf. This led to a hidden room filled with about 75 Nazi artifacts from the World War II era. Among the finds were a magnifying glass allegedly used by Hitler, an eagle clutching a swastika, knives with Nazi markings, and even a portrait of Hitler. Skeptics claimed that these aren't as old as suggested. Still, researchers argued that while there might be some newer modification, the artifacts themselves did belong to Nazis from the World War II period or even earlier. Although owning Nazi memorabilia is legal in Argentina, if not used to spread hate, the collector was charged with possessing items of suspicious origin. Police believe these artifacts were smuggled into the country after the war. Number 15. USS Yorktown. Let's talk about the USS Yorktown. Not the famous museum ship with 11 battle stars, but its predecessor, an aircraft carrier with a much shorter yet equally heroic story. This Yorktown played a key role in the early years of WW was II.
So it looks like the wreck is canted to starboard, so we're not going to likely see the potentially 2 torpedo hits that sank it from the U-boat.
Particularly in the Battle of Midway. The crew fought valiantly, but the ship took heavy damage. They tried towing it back to Pearl Harbor for repairs. But on June 7, 1942, a Japanese submarine delivered the final blow with torpedoes. The Yorktown capsized and sank. For 50 years, its resting place remained a mystery. Then, in 1998, Dr. Robert Ballard, yes, the same guy again, pinpointed the shipwreck resting on the Pacific Ocean floor at great depth of more than 16,000 feet down and 1,600 miles from Hawaii. This wreck is a powerful reminder of the sacrifices made during World War II. Number 16. Drought reveals. With no doubt, droughts are no good for the ecosystem and much more, but sometimes they can reveal secrets that have been hiding underwater for decades. For example, in the 2015, one of the hardest droughts in Poland caused the Vistula River to drop to record low level and revealed that the river had been sitting on some wild World War II relic. First, they found stone chunks from a bridge blown up by the Germans in 1994. Cool enough, but then they kept digging and uncovered something even crazy, a Soviet fighter plane. Here's the story. Back in January 1945, a Soviet plane was flying low when German troops, on the run from the Red Army, shot it down. It crashed into the frozen river and just disappeared. The scary part? When the plane was found, the remains of 2 crew members were still in the cockpit, uniforms and all. Heartbreaking, right? Almost more tragic than it is fascinating. Number 17, Bluey East 2. Finding World War II relics? Always a thrill. But what about the times when people just left them to rot until they became straight up toxic? Take Bluey East 2, one of 14 remote air bases the US Air Force set up in Greenland during the war. Back then, Greenland was a Danish colony, and Denmark gave the US the green light to defend it from a German invasion. However, once the war ended, the US troops packed up and left, with more than 200,000 fuel drums scattered across the landscape. For over 70 years, that junk sat there, polluting one of the most stunning landscapes on Earth. Neither the US nor Denmark bothered to clean it up. Finally, in 2019, Denmark decided to provide funding for cleanup efforts, but it's going to take years. So now, Bluey East 2 remains a toxic eyesore, a depressing reminder of carelessness. Number 18, Michigan Lake Treasure. We usually picture shipwrecks when it comes to water bodies, right? But did you know Lake Michigan holds over 100 World War II airplane wrecks? It all ties back to a training program launched after the attack on Pearl Harbor. They use Lake Michigan as their practice ground to teach pilots how to land on aircraft carriers safely. Out of the roughly 15,000 pilots who went through the program, about 30 planes crashed into the lake. Recently, A&T Recovery Company used sonar tech to locate one of these wrecks. When divers checked it out, they found a historic gem, a US Navy Douglas Dauntless dive bomber. The plane was recovered and sent to a museum for restoration, bringing a piece of history back to life. But while this one now tells its story above ground, Lake Michigan still serves as an underwater graveyard for many other lost planes. Number 19, Submerged Treasure. In 1941, a German U-boat attacked a British cargo ship, the SS Gairsoppa, in the North Atlantic. What the Nazis didn't know? That ship was loaded with silver, like 240 tons of it, meant to fund the British war effort. They probably would have tried to swipe it instead of sinking it if they'd known. The wreck stayed hidden until 2011, when an American exploration company finally tracked it down and salvaged a good chunk of the silver. That haul sold, with the profit split between the company and the British government. There's probably still silver down. Don't go looking for it. The wreck is almost at a depth of 17,000 feet. Even with the best machines, salvaging at that depth is not easy. Number 20, Yamashita Gold. One of the most intriguing mysteries of World War II is centered around Japanese General Tomoyuki Yamashita. Stories claim he stole gold, gems, and antiques from 12 different countries throughout the war. But after Japan surrendered, he decided to bury them in various areas throughout the Philippines. But he never got to retrieve any of it. He was captured and later hanged by the Americans for war crime. Fast forward to 1971, when a locksmith reportedly stumbled upon one of Yamashita's treasure caches. Inside, gold bars and a Buddha statue. But then, things took a dark turn. Marcos, the dictator running the country then, allegedly got wind of Roxas's find and forced him to reveal the treasure's location. They say Marcos then stole it all, leaving Roxas empty-handed. Since then, treasure hunters have been obsessed with finding this lost gold. Every now and then, someone stumbles upon a clue, maybe a hit or an artifact, that reignites the hunt. It's like the mystery of the lost gold keeps whispering to people, tempting them to try their luck. Number 21, Trainee Off Course. Several aircraft were navigating across the country during a training mission out of Pat Bay. Most made it back safely, but the Dakota 576 crew decided to stop at Port Hardy as they were running low on fuel. That's when things took a turn. The weather worsened, a storm rolled in, and strong winds caused the plane to miss its first landing attempt. The pilot tried to circle back for another shot, but the fuel tank ran dry before they could. The plane crash-landed into a mountain in the north of Vancouver Island. Both the pilot and navigator tragically lost their lives on impact, but in an incredible twist, the gunman in the cargo area survived without a scratch. If you hike through the mountains today, you can visit the crash site. The plane remains remarkably well preserved, with the Air Force logo still visible. And get this, you can even explore the cockpit of this World War II era aircraft without any restriction. Number 22. Blast from past. In 2021, construction workers in Exeter, England made a terrifying discovery. A 1,000-kilogram World War II German bomb buried beneath the city. The bomb disposal squad was called in immediately, and within hours,
bomb teams worked to secure the old munition. They disposed of the threat with a controlled detonation.
more than 2,500 people, including 1,400 university students, were evacuated. To minimize the blast's impact, the team brought in 400 tons of sand and built protective walls. Even with all that prep, the controlled explosion left behind a crater the size of a double-decker bus. It's chilling to think about how dangerous these decades-old weapons still are. Imagine if the workers hadn't found it in time and it had gone off without warning. Scary, right? Number 23. Buffalo Amphibious Tank. Farmer Daniel Abbott had always heard the local legends about World War II. Buffalo tanks buried beneath Crowland. They'd been used to protect the land from flood. The story goes that 5 of these tanks floated away, disappearing into the ground. Daniel decided to investigate in 2018 after a station commander confirmed something was definitely buried there. After years of searching, he finally struck gold, or a 13-ton Buffalo, 30 feet underground in May 2021. With the help of volunteers, the tank was dug up over 5 days and set on the path to restoration. But Daniel has no plans to sell this historic find. He's determined to keep it right in Crowland, preserving a fascinating piece of the town's history. Number 24. War Pigeon. In 2012, while renovating their Surrey home, 74-year-old David Martin and his wife made an unusual discovery in a disused fireplace, a World War II carrier pigeon. At first, Martin thought it was just a random bird, but a red capsule on its leg revealed something incredible, a coded message. During the war, pigeons like this one were used to carry vital messages, often across enemy lines. The scrambled letters message suggests it might have flown in from Germany to deliver intel for a decoding team. Martin believes the pigeon stopped to rest in the chimney, was overcome by fumes, and sadly fell in, its vital message still strapped to its leg. Its discovery reminded humans that they weren't the only ones to pay the price of war. Number 25. In November 2020, German divers searching for abandoned fishing nets stumbled upon a rare World War II relic, a Nazi Enigma machine. At first, they mistook it for an old typewriter, but the unusual keys and rotors revealed its true identity. This device, once used by the Nazis to encrypt secret messages, scrambled text into complex codes only another Enigma machine could decode. Though it allowed secret Nazi communication for a time, the Allies eventually cracked the code, changing the course of the war. The divers had found all kinds of objects underwater before, but discovering an Enigma machine, the very device used by Nazis to be sneaky in the war, was beyond their wildest dream. And with that, our journey through the past comes to an end. Which of these discoveries did you find the most astonishing? Let us know in the comments. Don't forget to like this video and hit the little bell to get notified whenever we post more content just for you. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.